Welcome back. Today we are wrestling with something pretty challenging, actually. It's this theme of the high cost of pretending.
Yeah,
We're digging into a bunch of sources, gospel accounts, some historical takes, critiques on spiritual authenticity that really push us to, well, to just keep it real.
that's right. And our mission here in this deep dive is to kind of weave together these powerful narratives that can be a bit tough sometimes. We want to figure out why. Why was authenticity such a huge deal in these moments? Especially when you look at Jesus's intense frustration with hypocrisy.
Right.
And it makes us confront this tricky balance, doesn't it, between God's, incredible mercy and then the eventual need for judgment. Especially when what you see on the outside is hiding something empty inside.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The starting point for this period is quite a spectacle. The triumphal entry into Jerusalem. For anyone needing a quick reminder, this wasn't like a quiet side entrance. This was prophecy unfolding right there in the streets. You have Christ the Messiah riding a donkey, not some war horse, just like the old prophecy in Zechariah said.
And that detail of the donkey, it's really key for context.
How so?
Well, riding a donkey signaled peace, humble royalty. It was a deliberate contrast to, say, the Roman military parades the city was used to.
Oh,
And the crowd, they went nuts, throwing down cloaks, palm branches, shouting, Hosanna, which, basically means save us. They saw him as this king figure who'd finally kick out the Romans.
So a huge celebration, hopeful revolution vibes. But here's where the sources really highlight the paradox, the twist.
Yeah, it looks like this amazing moment of fulfillment.
Right.
But when you zoom out, you see the danger lurking just beneath the surface. It's all a bit superficial.
Because that same crowd.
Exactly. That whole crowd cheering Hosanna on Sunday. Just a few days later, somehow they're shouting, crucify him. Their excitement wasn't really rooted in deep change. It was more about what they expected him to do for them right then and there.
So nothing was quite what it seemed in that parade. Let's unpack the central conflict then. Who are the main players in this big deception?
Well, the sources are pretty clear on this. It points firmly at the religious establishment.
The leaders.
Yeah, the priests, and particularly the Pharisees. I mean, these guys were the picture of outward piety.
Right. They looked apart.
Totally. They were supposed to be the spiritual guides leading people to God through, careful rule following. But what were they actually doing? They were actively blocking people from connecting with Christ, who is God's grace right in front of them.
So their whole system, all the rituals, it had kind of decayed into what the sources call just a form of godliness.
Precisely. They were experts in the rituals, tithing tiny herbs, fasting where everyone could see, wearing these big prayer boxes, but their hearts. The sources say they were far from the God the rituals pointed to.
Wow.
The very practices meant to draw people closer had become like walls instead. A performance really built up over centuries, just for show.
What strikes me about the parade, though, is that the proof of Christ's authenticity, his power, the actual results, was right there, leading the way. The crowd wasn't just random people.
That's such a powerful observation. Yeah, think about who was at the front. It wasn't the powerful or the rich.
No.
It was the people he'd changed. The blind he'd healed, now actually seeing the parade.
Imagine that.
The formerly lame, jumping around full of joy. And maybe the most stunning proof, Lazarus. The guy he raised from the dead, walking right there. A living, breathing miracle.
So this undeniable display of divine power and mercy happening in broad daylight, it didn't spark faith in the leaders.
No, quite the opposite. It just cranked up their fury.
Really? What?
Well, the sources say this commotion, this raw display, it absolutely infuriated the Pharisees. Their whole position, their authority, their control, it all depended on keeping things just so, keeping the focus on their rituals. This wild, unpredictable demonstration of actual divine power. It threatened the whole system they'd built on pretense. So, yeah, it's just made them more determined to get rid of Jesus.
Okay, but here's where it gets really fascinating for me. In the middle of all this chaos and celebration, Jesus doesn't just react with anger at the hypocrisy. The sources talk about this sharp turn towards, well, deep grief. As they reached the ridge overlooking Jerusalem, he just stopped. He looked at the city, all its glory, and he just started weeping.
Yeah, that moment, it's recorded right there. And it's not just, little sadness. It's described as this heart-wrenching sorrow.
Why? Why the tears then?
Because he saw what was coming. He saw the destruction waiting for Jerusalem. They had chance after chance to change, to recognize who he was, but they were just spiritually blind.
They didn't recognize the time.
Exactly. They did not recognize the time of God's coming. So the grief wasn't just for them, it was for the past they had chosen. This path leading straight to self-destruction.
It's like watching someone ignore the map you just gave them and walk towards a cliff.
Wow.
And that deep emotion, that grief, it kind of sets the stage perfectly for his next actions, doesn't it? The fig tree and cleaning out the temple.
Yeah, those two events flow right out of that moment. Let's talk about the fig tree first. He's outside the city, sees this fig tree, looks promising, but finds no fruit, and curses it.
Okay, that seems a bit harsh on the surface, maybe? Like an angry outburst?
It can seem that way, but when you understand the botany, the lesson clicks into place.
All right, tell us about the botany. Why does that matter?
Well, fig trees are kind of unique. Unlike, say, apple trees, the figs themselves usually start growing before the leaves really come out in full.
Oh, interesting.
So a fig tree that's already covered in big, impressive leaves, that's basically an advertisement. It's shouting, "I've got fruit."
So the leaves were a promise.
Exactly, a promise of nourishment. So for this tree to have all the leaves, this great outward show of health, but be completely barren inside, it was the perfect picture of spiritual fraud.
Yeah.
All show, no substance.
I see it now. The fig tree is the hypocrite, looks great, promises much, delivers nothing.
Yes. It was a living symbol of Israel's situation at that time. They had the temple, the sacrifices, the traditions, all the outward signs of spiritual life. But where was the actual fruit? The love, the justice, the mercy, it wasn't there. They weren't offering any real spiritual food to the world.
And he takes that image, that symbol, and immediately acts on it with the temple cleansing. Marches right in, starts driving out the merchants, flipping over the money changers' tables. It's this incredibly dramatic physical act of protest.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that physical outburst, it's the direct, hands-on expression of his frustration with all that fake spirituality, just symbolized with the tree.
Right.
He accuses them flat out, "You've turned my father's house," which should be a place for everyone to pray and connect with God, "into a den of robbers."
Yeah. They were making money off religion.
Precisely. Profiting from people's devotion, making it corrupt and burdensome. The holiest place had become ground zero for spiritual fraud.
And this whole sequence, the tree and the temple, it really drives home a core teaching from the sources. It's pretty challenging, even today.
It absolutely is,
Oh.
because the conclusion the sources draw from these events is radical. It says, "He declares that the open sinner is less guilty than is he who professes to serve God, but who bears no fruit to his glory."
Whoa, hang on. Let's pause there. That feels upside down. How can someone openly doing wrong be less guilty than someone pretending to be good?
It sounds counterintuitive, right? But think about it. The open sinner, their situation is, it's honest. They usually know they're messing up. There's potential for them to see their need for change.
Okay.
But pretense, that's a deeper kind of deception. It doesn't just fool others. It often fools the person themselves. It cuts them off from real transformation. And worse, it misrepresents God to everyone else. It makes faith look like just a performance.
So the barren fig tree wasn't just failing itself. Its appearance was lying about the whole orchard, so to speak.
Exactly. It made the whole concept of fruitfulness look like a sham.
Okay, to make this idea of, false credentials and the damage a lie can do more concrete, let's talk about that story of Dr. Bob Harris, the New York weatherman. It's a modern example, but it really shows the human cost of keeping up a facade.
Oh yeah, the Dr. Bob story. He built this huge career in New York City, one of the toughest media markets. He was on WCBS TV, wrote for the New York Times, even got involved with baseball as a commissioner.
Impressive stuff.
Totally. And it was all built on this one claim, that he had a PhD in geophysics from Columbia University.
So he had all the outward leaves, you could say, the titles, the respect, the success, advertising serious academic fruit.
That's a great way to put it. But the reality, much barer. He'd bounced around a few colleges, studied different things, but never actually finished any degree, let alone a doctorate from Columbia.
Wow. Imagine the stress of keeping that lie going for years, decades even.
Yeah, the constant fear of being found out.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that happened.
The inevitable collapse.
Right. He was around 40, I think, when an anonymous letter got sent to the TV station. His bosses looked into it, checked the credentials, and boom, the whole thing just fell apart.
And the consequences were severe, right? Public humiliation.
Oh, absolutely. Lost the TV job, fired by the Times. Everything he'd built on that lie just evaporated overnight.
It's a painful story, but it really drives home the point, doesn't it?
It really does. It's like the fig tree, like Dr. Bob. The consequences of pretending eventually catch up because a lie takes constant effort to maintain, and it just can't provide real security. The sources are so clear on this. God wants authenticity, inside and out. Anything less is just built on shaky ground.
Which brings us to the final, maybe the trickiest part of these sources, Dealing with the consequences of this kind of persistent fakeness. I mean, the judgment part, the withered tree, Jesus weeping over the city's future, it feels really intense.
It does.
But the sources also constantly stress that God is long-suffering, that he doesn't want anyone to perish. How do those two things fit together?
That's the crucial tension, isn't it? We have to hold both. If we look at the big picture, the sources paint a picture of God with infinite love and mercy.
Right.
They talk about him giving extended chances, this probationary time. He sends warning after warning, plea after plea. The reason judgment is often slow, like Peter writes about, is because of that patience. He wants people to turn around.
Okay, so if God is all love and mercy, why does the patience eventually run out? What changes?
It's not God who changes. It's the human response, or lack of it. The sources talk about a point where mercy makes her last plea. The real danger isn't God suddenly withdrawing grace. It's the human heart becoming so hard, so stuck in its facade like the Pharisees, that it just ceases to respond to the Spirit of God.
So it becomes deaf to the call.
Exactly. The fig tree didn't wither because God was being mean. It withered because, spiritually speaking, it was already dead. It was beyond the point of bearing fruit.
So Jerusalem's fate, then, serves as this really serious warning. God's patience with performance does have a limit, not because his love fails, but because our hearts can become unreachable.
Precisely. And the sources use this really striking phrase, drawing from the prophet Isaiah. They call God's act of judgment a strange work.
Strange work. What does that mean?
It means it's alien to his nature. It's not something he enjoys or wants to do. It's like a necessary, painful surgery, something that has to be done to remove the disease, to clear the way for genuine life and holiness. But it's not his first choice.
That puts a different perspective on it. The core lesson, then, seems to be about genuine, wholehearted connection.
Absolutely. God isn't looking for lip service, like Isaiah said, honoring him with words while our hearts are miles away. He wants real transformation. He wants us serving him with our whole heart, so our outer life actually matches our inner reality. It's not just about behaving better, it's about being different, truly aligned inside.
So, boiling it all down for us today, what's the takeaway? It seems pretty clear. God's calling for something real, a genuine relationship. He emphasizes that inner beauty, the gentle and quiet spirit Peter talks about, over any fancy outward show or fake piety.
Yeah.
Because the cost of pretending, it's just too high. It puts everything that truly matters at risk.
And that leads us right to the final, maybe uncomfortable question for you to think about this week. Take a real, honest look at your own spiritual life, your walk with Christ, or just your life in general. Is the stuff you do, your service, your kindness, your religious practice, is it coming from a place of genuine love for God? Or is it maybe just a little bit about impressing others, about keeping up appearances?
That's a tough question.
It is. So what's one concrete thing, maybe just one small step you could take this week to keep it real, to focus more on that inner transformation rather than just the outward show, so that your life, actually starts bearing some real fruit?